I've always been skeptical about ghost stories. They're fun to read, sure, but when it comes to believing them, not so much. That changed after what happened in Black Hollow Cemetery. I've tried to push it to the back of my mind, but the memories linger. Maybe writing it down will help me make sense of it. It started as a weekend adventure. My friends and I ran a small YouTube channel where we explored supposedly haunted places. It wasn't anything big, just a fun project where we'd try to spook each other and laugh about it later. Our group consisted of me, Jenna, Sam, and Marcus. Jenna was the skeptic, Sam the tech guy, and Marcus, well, he was the daredevil who always pushed the limits. One night, Sam stumbled across an old forum post about Black Hollow Cemetery. It was described as a forgotten graveyard hidden deep in the woods, a place so ancient it didn't appear on any maps. According to the post, locals believed it was cursed. People who ventured there reported strange whispers, and some never returned. It sounded perfect for our channel. The next Saturday, we loaded up the car with cameras, flashlights, and supplies. The drive to Black Hollow took us through winding roads and increasingly dense forest. By the time we parked, the trees were so thick that they blocked most of the daylight. We followed a narrow dirt trail, guided by Sam's GPS and an old screenshot from the forum. As we walked, the air grew colder, and the forest seemed unnaturally quiet. After about an hour, we found it. The graveyard was tucked into a small clearing, surrounded by twisted trees. The headstones were ancient, some leaning at odd angles, others partially buried. Many were so weathered that the inscriptions were unreadable. In the center stood a massive gnarled oak tree, its roots sprawling like skeletal fingers across the ground. "This is creepy as hell," Jenna muttered, crossing her arms. Marcus grinned. "That's the point." He pulled out his phone and started filming. "Welcome to Black Hollow Cemetery, where the dead don't rest in peace." We set up our equipment and began exploring. Sam focused on recording EVP sessions while Jenna and I examined the gravestones. Marcus wandered off with his handheld camera, narrating dramatically. It felt like our usual routine until I noticed something odd. The temperature had dropped sharply, and my breath came out in faint clouds. I glanced at Jenna, who was rubbing her arms. "Did the weather app say anything about this?" I asked. She shook her head. "No, this is weird." Before I could respond, we heard Marcus shout, "Guys, come here!" We found him near the oak tree, staring at the ground. He pointed to an unmarked grave, the dirt disturbed as if someone had recently dug there. "Check this out." "Don't touch it," Jenna warned. But Marcus, being Marcus, he ignored her and crouched down. As he brushed the dirt away, he froze. "Whoa, did you hear that?" "Hear what?" I asked. He looked up, whispering, "It's coming from the ground." None of us heard anything, but the atmosphere had shifted. The air felt charged, like the moment before a storm. Marcus stood up, muttering something under his breath. At first I thought he was joking, but the tone of his voice was unsettling, low and unfamiliar. "What are you saying?" Jenna asked. Stepping back, Marcus didn't answer. He just kept muttering, his eyes unfocused. Sam waved a hand in front of his face. "Dude, snap out of it." Finally, Marcus blinked and shook his head. "Sorry, I don't know what happened." We were all on edge after that. Sam suggested we pack up, but Marcus insisted on staying. "We've come this far. Let's at least finish the shoot." Reluctantly, we agreed. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the graveyard became even more sinister. Shadows stretched, long and dark, and the whispers Marcus mentioned earlier. We all started hearing them. They were faint at first, barely audible, but grew louder as the night wore on. The voices overlapped, speaking in a language none of us recognized. Sam's equipment picked up strange interference. His audio recorder captured static interspersed with garbled words. When he played it back, one phrase was clear. "Leave this place. This is getting too real," Jenna said. "We should go." We started packing up when Marcus tripped over something. It was a small, rusted metal box half buried near a gravestone. He opened it to reveal an old, tattered book. The pages were filled with strange symbols and diagrams, along with a language none of us could read. "This is some witchcraft stuff," Sam said. "Put it back," Jenna snapped. "We shouldn't mess with this." Marcus hesitated, but eventually placed the box back where he found it. As he stood, the whispers surged into a deafening roar. The ground beneath the oak tree began to tremble, and a shadowy figure emerged from the darkness. It was humanoid, but distorted, its limbs too long, its face obscured. We froze, too terrified to move. The figure raised a hand, and Marcus stumbled forward as if pulled by an invisible force. He collapsed to his knees, clutching his head. "Help me," he screamed. Jenna and I grabbed his arms, trying to pull him back, but it felt like something was holding him in place. Sam shouted, "Let him go!" and threw a rock at the figure. It passed through, hitting the tree behind it. The whispers stopped. The figure vanished. Marcus slumped forward, unconscious but breathing. We didn't wait to find out what would happen next. Carrying Marcus, we bolted back to the car. The forest seemed alive, branches clawing at us as we ran. By the time we reached the car, Marcus had regained consciousness, but he was different. He stared out the window, silent and distant as we drove away. Back home, things didn't go back to normal. Marcus's behavior grew more erratic. He'd wake up screaming, speaking in that same strange language. He started drawing symbols from the book, even though he swore he didn't remember them. One night, he disappeared. We found his car parked near the trail to Black Hollow Cemetery, but there was no sign of him. We never went back to the cemetery. Jenna and Sam stopped talking about it altogether, but I couldn't let it go. I spent weeks researching, trying to understand what we encountered. I found old records about Black Hollow. It was used in the 1700s to bury outcasts and accused witches. The oak tree in the center was said to be cursed, a gateway between the living and the dead. Sometimes I hear whispers when I'm alone. They're faint but persistent, as if calling me back. I've started dreaming about the cemetery, always the same. I'm standing beneath the oak tree, the book in my hands, while shadowy figures surround me. I'm terrified that one day I won't wake up from the dream, or worse, that I'll wake up back in Black Hollow Cemetery. Would you go back? Could you resist the whispers calling your name?